Hey, Barbara. Hey, Scapegoat. Hey, Arjun. Hey, Killface. And there's all of that updated. There we go. So when I went grocery shopping, I saw that there's a new kind of Sprite that I decided to try. Sprite Limonade Legacy. Hey, Weasel Jenna. Hey, Barbara. Yesterday, Barbara. I went down with my mom yesterday. Today, I went to the grocery store on my own. Oot and a boot, but I want to be home. I know that feeling. So yeah, Sprite Limonade Legacy. It is lemon lime strawberry and lemonade flavored soda. It's okay. It doesn't taste that much different from regular Sprite. It does smell a bit different. You do get a little bit of strawberry in the smell, but I don't find it has. Yeah, that's right. Happy birthday, Jenna. Jenna, I would have included "Happy Birthday" in the title, but I mean, I did give you a happy birthday stream 2 weeks ago for your last birthday. I did do a happy birthday Jenna stream when you had your birthday 2 weeks ago. So yeah, like you get a little bit of the strawberry flavor as like an aftertaste almost. So it's not bad. For some reason, celebrating 50 years of hip hop for some reason. I don't know what lemon lime strawberry and lemonade. I don't know why that's a hip hop flavor. Yeah. Apparently, that is the flavor they decided to go to honor hip hop. So, how's everyone? Pasta bolognese casserole. Nice. Hey, take another. Nothing good birthday. Is it as good as your Is it as good as the one you had 2 weeks ago, Jenna? That's my question. Is this birthday as good as the birthday you had 2 weeks ago? Went up for dinner. Nice. Distillery. Nice. Glass of wine. Nice. My favorite blackened dish? Blackened cod and blackened scallops. I don't know. I don't know that I really do a lot of blackened stuff. I don't really know that I do a lot of blackened dishes. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, happy birthday, Jenna. Here's to many more. Blackened chicken? I don't know. Blackened meats. I don't really know what blackened means, I guess. I suppose I don't really, I don't know. There's probably blackened food that I like and just don't think of it as in that sense, you know? I don't know. I don't know. Give it another minute or two for people to come in. So anyone watch the Final Fantasy VII, the new Anyone watch the new Final Fantasy VII remake trailer? Whatever, whatever the subtitle is. I forget what subtitle the new one has. Rebirth. And I watched the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Caribbean style cooking? Yeah, I suppose I haven't really had any Caribbean. I haven't really done any Caribbean food. Yeah, a new trailer dropped for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The next part of the Final Fantasy VII remake. Honestly, looks pretty damn good. So the PS5 version of it is going to be 2 discs. Like, I was unaware that games still did the multi-disc thing. Because I was under the impression that at this point, discs were pretty damn big. Held a lot of stuff on there. But yeah, apparently it's going to be 2 discs of content. So, yeah, looking forward to it. And, even better, just to make it even better, means we're going to be getting some more Jen Bartel Final Fantasy VII art coming out. Woot woot. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to that. 1 plus 1 equals 2. You plus me equals 2. What was that webcomic? You plus me dream. Alright, it's YU plus ME. Dream. Nope! I'm still not giving out my phone number to anybody. I don't do that. You can message me on Twitter. Alright, so 15 minutes, 16 minutes, so Only a handful of people in here. Only like 10 people in here, but we may as well get started. May as well get started on this. If anyone shows up, then great. If not, then whatever, I'm still playing. 2 more. We'll see how many of these we can get through. 16 digits on the front of your card plus a 3 on the back. No, take another. No two summer evenings in Sunset Bird looked quite the same. Not downtown, not at the beaches, and not on a street where the only change that anyone had seen in years was the arrival of a new tourist. Though you hadn't seen any stars in the sky, you knew the day was almost over from the sound of chirping crickets. Shadows of swaying branches were stretching across the grass. Well, probably. You hadn't gotten the chance to experience a sunset before you got pulled into whatever this was while trying to clarify your plans for tomorrow with Baxter. May as well mention. So, I think we're in Baxter's bedroom right now. This is actually pretty much placeholder art. Apparently, they are going to be releasing another patch or two with some updated art assets. I'm playing this before that has the chance to come out, so this is placeholder art that they use for the bedroom. But yeah, the finalized art is going to give him a black and white bedroom. Naturally. I figured I'd mention that. I mean, it's something that feels like it's worth mentioning. Oh, he paced back and forth between a pair of half-packed, or half-unpacked, depending on how someone saw it, suitcases. Piles of folded clothes were abandoned on the bed. You laid out across the top half of the bed closest to the headboard. Baxter didn't mind where you were, happy to work around you. Or, more probably, he just didn't notice. He accidentally threw a pair of rolled-up socks in your face earlier. He apologized profusely for it. This wasn't the first time that you'd been in the condo. Baxter invited you over before, but so far it had only been the first floor. You were in the master bedroom now. Ooh la la, sexy times. Oh yeah. As a kid, the condo was the equivalent of Fort Knox. No way in, and if someone unwanted did sneak inside, there was probably no way out. It just wasn't worth the risk. Being in that room was closer to a fantasy than it was reality. As much as someone could dream about being in a rental bedroom anyway. And yet, here you were, all thanks to Baxter, who didn't seem to realize the gravity of the situation. One of the doors to the armoire, his word for it, was ajar. Hangers rattled from the excessive force Baxter used to remove a few of his jackets. Honestly, you weren't sure why he packed them at all. It never got cold enough anywhere in Southern California to wear outerwear during the winter, never mind the summer. Hey, honey bunny, hey, fart. Theme for your photo shoot? Weasels. On behalf of Weasel Jenna, the theme for your photo shoot is weasels. And hey, honey bunny. And yet he still brought them, no matter how much he was convinced otherwise.
So?
It will be cooler in temperature, but just barely. While we won't be seeing any snow, I would suggest you bring a jacket and a sturdy pair of shoes. He pulled another zipper on one suitcase, peering into its contents, but not deeply investigating for long before he moved on to the next thing, a drawer filled with nothing that he abruptly shut. He waded past the only part of his wardrobe that remained neat and in place, formal clothes. The suit he wore to the interactive play was perfectly arranged for use at any minute, in case there was another regal emergency. Don't know if I have weasel ears. Baxter hesitated before leaving that be. His fingers grazed the top of the comforter as he passed. "Jamie, if you would." You moved aside as he wove through an increasingly intricate disaster area to look for something else that he hadn't made clear to you. It seemed that up until now, Baxter had been living out of his suitcases, which wouldn't ordinarily strike you as a problem, until he said he needed at least one of them to be empty. If only so that he could relocate his things from one to the other. He was certain that he'd need no more than an afternoon to pack before you arrived. But there were some things in this world that not even the likes of Baxter Ward could handle with grace and composure. Mornings were one. Personal organization was another. Good thing I have a jacket hanging in my closet. Yep. Indeed.
I apologize.
I must apologize. He stopped in place. The corners of his eyes softened as he turned to you, brows knit together even as he busied his hands with folding a pair of pants, only to immediately throw it into the suitcase. "Hey, Jerry." "I realize this can't be terribly entertaining." "I'm okay." It wasn't really a bother. You'd come of your own volition and knew what he'd be doing while you were here. Besides, if there was trouble, you'd have gone home. He was a worrier. "That is one of your charm points. In for a penny, in for a pound." He chuckled, shaking his head with quiet amusement. Content with your reply, he went back to unconsciously constructing a labyrinth of his possessions. You wondered how he fit everything into two suitcases to begin with. Probably had help from his parents. This entire situation made about as much sense as anything else around him, which was to say that maybe a quarter of it followed any linear train of thought. The rest left much to be desired. Baxter had a tendency to work through things in a sort of circuitous sense, his own logic that he used to explain things as a matter of fact. So much so that you couldn't help but just take him on his word, even if the details only made themselves clearer later. What was happening now was even more convoluted than normal. The first point, Baxter very suddenly announced he was going on a vacation away from his vacation. Hey, color purple. A 3-day and 2-night jaunt to a mountain lodge a handful of hours away by his judgment. Plans were already underway as soon as he figured out where he was staying in California. It made sense if he was trying to get more bang for his buck for his experience in the area, but that wasn't the main reason. The second point is a family tradition happening without his family. He and his parents always went to the Rockies in the summer, except this time he was staying in California. Baxter decided to make a trip out to the mountains here regardless. And that was also fine, except he wasn't prepared for the trip at all. You would have thought that someone else planned when and where it happened, with the way he was rushing around the condo trying to pack and trying to remember what to pack. And point 3, the most peculiar. He rented a second room in the lodge, despite coming here alone, and to visit no one in particular. He did have some acquaintances in the state, but none of them were people he wanted to take a trip with. And to fill that space, he invited people that only hung out with him a couple times. You and Terry. With how last minute it was, Terry hadn't been able to go. You were another story. The weekend was free, and your moms were able to accept the idea of you going. Going up to the mountains to stay in a lodge was a cool opportunity. It wasn't the kind of trip you and your family took. Not that you'd taken many trips since your breaks got busier and Liz moved away. So the prospect of traveling anywhere farther than the city was exciting. Negotiating with your moms went better than expected. They hadn't vetoed it immediately because you were an adult, but they weren't excited about the idea. It was one thing if you were going on a trip with the usual cast of suspects, but Baxter? A guy you met basically the other day? Fair. Fair concern. Going with a strange boy. My favorite childhood trip? Scotland. I always enjoyed the trips to Scotland. I think my favorite of the trips to Scotland was probably the time that we got to see the military tattoo at Edinburgh Castle. Hey, trailer. Because the tattoo is something that, you know, it's not really something you get a lot of opportunities to see in Canada. And, I don't know, it's just, it's a cool little show that they put on. Lawrence Cheney? Not that I'm aware of, take another, but I didn't exactly ask people's names. So. Yeah. Maybe? He was polite and well-spoken. However, your moms didn't know his parents, a rule that you thought was obsolete once you were in high school, but not so when it came to overnight trips. Never been overseas, that's pretty cool. Yeah. They eventually gave their blessing when Liz took your side in the discussion. She was convinced by the fact that he'd be staying in an entirely separate room to him. I would never cheat on my cove. Come on. I've got to ask, what was your plan if I said I couldn't go? Making the trip alone would not have dissuaded me from going. Baxter's hand stalled over the suitcase he was bringing on the trip. He brushed back his hair into place, turning to his side to search for another misplaced necessity.
Of course.
I thought there was a possibility I might make friends during my stay here. There was no guarantee, of course. I wouldn't hope to make any presumptions there.
His gaze wandered, lips tightening at the corners of his mouth involuntarily. His contemplative expression faltered as he looked up from his suitcase to you.
But I thought that if I did, then would the trip not be made exceptionally better with company? If not, then so be it. Acquiring a room is the difficult part. A reservation needs to be made weeks in advance, whereas canceling one only needs a notice of 48 hours or more. It's taken off the bill, no questions asked. Realistically, I would only need 2 days to know if I was going alone or with company.
See?
That was the case with you, was it not?
You're certainly an optimist.
Better an optimist than a pessimist, I say.
Baxter went back to packing, though his suitcases looked to be middling in quantities more now than they'd been earlier in the morning. Or looked to be middling in quantities more now than they'd been earlier in the morning. Ah. He glanced over his shoulder at you, a black shirt folded in his hands as neatly as any store display you've seen in your life.
This might not be an ideal time to ask, but as we are speaking about the trip, I did want to ask as to where your personal boundaries lie, Jamie. I am deeply appreciative of your mother's approval, but what I am comfortable with may not mirror what they are comfortable with. You only need to say so if you are in agreement with their preferences, but if not...
Baxter had a tendency to act a lot older than he actually was. It was times like this, when he smirked entirely too mischievously, that you were reminded he was barely older than barely any older than you.
Well...
I may forget by the time we get there.
You chuckled to yourself. Yeah, of course he'd add that caveat. Moms were hoping Liz could come along too, so I wouldn't be alone. He must have looked surprised by the suggestion, apparently aware of how it must have, and certainly did, come off to your parents to invite their youngest on an overnight trip. But she argued I wasn't going out of state, and I'm not still a kid. I just have to call Liz every day. I mean call. She won't let me get away with texting. What a monster! Not allowed to... Has to be a phone call? Requiring a phone call? That's just cruel! Hey, Keefster. I think your game needs a little more pew-pew. That's what my Star Trek playthrough will be for, Keefster. Not that that game has a whole lot of, not that that game has a lot of pew-pew either, actually. But after I finish my Star Trek Let's Play, I figure I might do a Let's Play of Life is Strange. Which has no pew pew. I really don't do a lot of pew pew games. After Life is Strange, I'll probably do Final Fantasy, which doesn't have pew pew, but does have action in it. So, the new fires spreading up all over the entirety of Canada. Yeah, yeah, I have been aware of Canada being half on fire, Tropical Fish. I am aware that my country is burning. It's not good. Life is Strange. Specifically, it's the remastered version, Keefster, that I'm going to be playing. Which I guess will just have like updated graphics and everything. So, just because it's going to be the remastered version, I figured I'd play it. I wanted to play it anyway. Like, I wanted to play the game anyway. But the remaster is a good excuse. Plus, I can talk about the banging soundtrack. Love the soundtrack to the to Life is Strange. So many good songs. A few that I know, like a few bands that I actually already knew. Funnily enough. Hey there, because Alberta, Saskatchewan, new areas. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that I'd heard about new areas catching on fire, but I mean, it's not. I am not at all surprised. Step up my Sprite. No, Honey Bunny, because I can't pass it through the camera. Anyway, if I don't, she said she'll call the hotel instead, and the police, and anyone with a phone number to report that Pepe Le Pew was on the loose. Baxter snorted. Not laughed, full-on snorted. He covered his mouth, quickly avoiding your gaze as he had to resist the urge to laugh harder. I mean, god damn! Liz with the absolute savagery! Pepe Le Pew, damn! What bands are on there? So yeah, there's a song by Mogwai, Angus and Julia Stone, who I love. I'm a huge, like, I do really enjoy Angus and Julia Stone. Mudflow, Sid Matters, a couple songs by, or no, I think only one song by Sid Matters. I thought there were two songs by him. No, two songs, yeah. Two songs by Sid Matters. Song by Mogwai. Favorite kind of band is rubber. You can use them for all kinds of stuff. Indeed. So yeah, like it's funny. Like it's a lot of music that I'd never heard of, along with Angus and Julia Stone, who I did know already. Like that's a band that's a like group that I did already know and really enjoy. There's also Bright Eyes. There's a song by Bright Eyes, but I don't care about them. I will say, Life is Strange before the storm. Even better soundtrack. Daughter, love Daughter. Wolf Alice as well. I really like Wolf Alice. Brody Doll. Angus and Julia Stone is good. The song Grizzly Bear got me into them. Don't know that I've heard that one actually. So yeah, Before the Storm, the soundtrack isn't as has fewer bands. It's got a lot of the Before the Storm has multiple songs by Daughter, rather than having different. The original Life is Strange soundtrack is a bunch of different bands that they got. This one for Before the Storm, they just got Daughter for half the tracks, but freaking love Daughter, so I'm down with that. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, so Liz compared Baxter to Pepe Le Pew, so... You didn't know whether he'd seen the original cartoons or one of the more recent uses of the character, but he definitely got the reference. I was prepared to give your sister my thanks for convincing your mothers, but it appears everyone has notes on my manner of dress these days. Yeah, Mom joked that those old-fashioned black and white striped jumpsuits inmates wore would match your hair, if Liz did call the police on you. Back to my pew-pew free game. Indeed, Keefster. I'm not big on pew-pews. I'm not a big pew-pewer. How clever. Is a black and white tie out of vogue, Jamie? You aren't wearing a tie. Trying to suppress the grin was nigh impossible, especially after reliving the conversation about his vague resemblance to an aggressively forward skunk and a criminal. Baxter chuckled as he put away another pair of pants, the number of which he'd long lost count of as he went back and forth.
Charming.
Your family is quite charming. And I do agree that is only fair. Try to keep in touch with them while you're away. I'll trust you care for my fate enough to do that much.
Are you going to keep in touch with your parents?
It is my intention, though I couldn't promise it would be every day.
The itinerary for the trip was straightforward enough that Baxter didn't need to look at his laptop to read the details. He kept to his work on the suitcases. Check-in wasn't until 4 p.m. at the earliest, and the drive wasn't so significant that you'd be going for as long as he'd feared. So, the plan was to leave at noon, find dinner somewhere in the area when you got there, and then check into the lodge in the evening. The first day would be getting there. The second would be exploring the area in earnest, then the third would be taking the morning easy before checking out at noon to head back home. Well, home for you. Vacation home for Baxter. It was perfectly reasonable, according to him. He wouldn't be overextending himself to prepare on either of the big driving days, and you'd have a good amount of time in the lodge. Besides, if he drove that much early in the morning, you were pretty confident you wouldn't make it back in one piece. Hey, Vanna! Upon further inspection of Baxter's own supplies, there were a few things left to pack, and a few more things you needed to buy.
I don't suppose we'll need any formal wear, really. But on the off chance that we have dinner at a restaurant that necessitated that.
I think I'll be okay with that. But I'll see you tomorrow, Baxter. I gotta pack too. Good luck. As you started to make your way out of the master bedroom, his head snapped up.
See you.
Oh, of course. I will see you tomorrow, Jamie. Have a good evening.
Morning came uneventfully, save the final warning from your family about how they'd deploy a full-fledged investigation team the minute that something seemed off. You agreed that you would call daily, but it didn't do much to dissuade the endless worrying. Liz didn't pull any punches either, least of all after your family helped you load your things into the back of Baxter's car. Ma and Liz pulled you into a hug as Mom shut the trunk with a click of finality before she joined in the squeeze. Don't forget that I'm watching him, Jamie. I'll come get you if you need me to. Just say the word. Doesn't matter when, okay? You embraced the hug as they all tugged you in close. Ma and Mom planted a kiss on each of your cheeks, or planted a kiss each on your cheeks. They were just reminding you because they cared, not because they didn't trust you. But you wouldn't be going anywhere if they didn't let you go. Liz grinned, pulling you into another hug anyway. She squeezed your shoulders.
What a pickle.
Right. I trust Jamie to do their job. But Baxter... You'll be careful with our child, won't you? You couldn't see what their faces looked like because of the way that they held you. However, you could hear the apprehension in Baxter's tense laugh.
I can do that.
Of course. You have my word, ma'ams.
A perfectly gentlemanly response from him as always. As you were freed, Baxter made his way to the passenger side. He opened the door for you with a sweep of his arm. Bye! Moms and Liz waved you off, and you slid into the side of the car, shutting the door behind you. As soon as the seatbelts clicked, the engine roared to life. You reversed out of the driveway and rumbled away from your neighborhood to the freeway. The familiar sight of Sunset Bird eventually gave way to Prism Vista City, then to the open space between here and there. You couldn't smell the salt in the air anymore, and for a moment it felt odd to remember that there weren't beaches everywhere that you went, even in the same state. The radio set to classical music gave a nice backtrack to Baxter's storytelling of other trips he'd taken with his parents up to the Rocky Mountains. Those memories gave an idea of what to expect when you arrived at the cabin, even though he'd glazed over some of the details. He even mentioned odder experiences. One of which included getting chased across a river by what he and his family thought was a bear, but turned out to be a particularly chubby dog who wanted to be friends. That's cute. That's cute. You contributed to the conversation that you recently went on a trip with Cove to Nevada to visit his mom. BMW? I could not tell you take another. I know nothing about cars. Baxter listened as attentively as you'd listened to him. He'd been to Nevada before, but the heat there was miserable for someone like him. The ride was as smooth as it could be, except for the occasional congestion of the traffic. That was always inevitable this time of year. Baxter wasn't the only tourist. Eventually, the massive freeways came down to 2 lanes as the elevation grew steeper and steeper. Roads cut through canyons, giving a scenic view. You still texted your friends and family between conversations and sightseeing until you lost signal. By the time you hit your first official checkpoint, it was late in the day. You stopped at a roadside diner for a bite to eat before finishing the last leg of the trip. After the short final stretch, the car rolled to a stop at the front of a massive log hotel. Massive log. It towered over your head when you stepped out of the vehicle. Baxter handed the keys to the attending valet. The lodge was somehow both rustic and fancy at the same time. For an oversized wooden cabin, the doors had big, elaborate wrought handles that you were sure must have cost a pretty penny.
It appears that we have arrived.
Baxter ran at his side of the car with bags in hand, smiling comfortingly as you stood there empty-handed and staring at the building. How snazzy! You didn't expect Baxter to laugh at what you said. It is a pretty apt description of the place, but he shook his head demurely. Hey, trailer.
Lovely.
I wasn't aware anyone still used that word. Amazing.
You both carried your things into the lobby. You hadn't brought enough with you that you'd need to make a second trip. And, after all that consternation in his bedroom, Baxter had managed to shave everything he needed down to 1 bag and suitcase. The lobby was as big as the front of the building suggested. Nice. Nice lobby. That's very nice. Like the fireplace over here. Light piano music tinkled in the background. An ultra-traditional chandelier hung from the ceiling, sunlight shining through the glass doors and reflecting on the carefully cut stonework. A fireplace burned in the far end of the lobby for whom you could only have presumed to be guests, but despite all the chairs and couches available for them, there was scarcely a soul. It's for ambience. The fireplace is just ambience. When am I going to take you on a vacation to a hotel like that? When I can afford it. Okay, that's a painting of the Rockies. I wanted to sort of look closer at this painting, but it's just a painting of the Rocky Mountains. It wasn't cozy, not in the way that you'd expected it to be, given Baxter only described it as a mountain lodge. It was big and impressive, and even the stairwell seemed more fitting for a medieval castle than a homey cabin in the woods. Hey, Kelly! Ambience?
Indeed. Ambiance. Ambiance. To one side, the front desk was occupied by staff who were busy with helping with a large party. Hey, PK. We may be waiting a while. Why don't we set these down? He tugged at the strap of the crossbody bag he had over his shoulder and lifted the suitcase in his hand, gesturing for you to follow to the nearest open seating area, which was all of them. Footsteps echoed in the cavernous room, and, when your bags hit the ground, the sound of that did too. Baxter opted to set his bags in one of the chairs instead of sitting. He'd been stuck in the car for so long. He didn't make a point of stretching his legs, though, ostensibly because it would have looked overly casual for a man such as him. Beyonce. Yep.
What do you think?
So, now that you've gotten a look, what is your opinion on our temporary abode? Abode! When is Gordon Ramsay going to show up in this hotel to yell at the owner and tell the restaurant that their food is trash? I mean, this place probably has pretty good food. And this place isn't a restaurant. He deals with restaurants, not lodges, not hotels. Honestly, I feel a little out of place here. My apologies, Jamie. It wasn't my intention. Our rooms will be, hopefully, less ostentatious. They will at least not be so overwhelming in scale. Thanks. Of course. He turned his attention to the front desk, though the situation hadn't improved at all. There were no signs of it clearing up now, or in the near future. Hotel help? Oh. There's a hotel hell? I didn't realize there was a hotel hell. I would still order chicken tenders. Hell yeah, you gotta do chicken tenders. But he got a room with only one bed. He got 2 rooms, honey bunny. 2 bedrooms. Though we'll see if that carries through. I mean, it probably will. Jamie, would you mind if I made a phone call? I am considering making the obligatory phone call to my mother. The one bed trope?
Honestly.
I do not often keep my parents appraised of my day-to-day life, but I do believe they will be glad to know I arrived at this secondary vacation. Kitchen nightmares with Gordon goes to hotels? I was unaware of it. His gaze dropped to the floor as his hand idly sneaked into his pocket to fish out his phone. His formerly polite smile became crooked. I am not so bad a son that I cannot grant them that. Stanky. Yeah. Sure, go ahead. Thank you. It won't be more than a few minutes. Officially withdrawing his phone, Baxter promptly brought it up his contacts and made the call. A hand rested on his hip while the other held the device to his ear. His head craned back towards the high ceiling as he waited away the dial tone before a voice, too soft for you to hear but loud enough for you to register, greeted Baxter. You take another, there will be only one bed? I'm sure take another will be fine sleeping on the floor. Hello, Mother. It's nice to speak with you. We've arrived at the hotel. The drive went well. He glanced over his shoulder at you, pressing his index finger to his lips, as if to hush you before you could think of saying something. You couldn't help but wonder if she caught on to the we, considering Baxter came to the state alone in the first place.
Yes.
Ah, yes, I have Jamie with me, my neighbor here. Tell your mom I said hi, you whispered to Baxter. His soft brown eyes lit up with a new warmth, having not expected you to take interest. Jamie says hello, Mother.
Who actually says mother? That is some serial killer. That is some sociopath language.
Hello, mother.
He nodded as she said something in response to him. However, his attention didn't move from you. As the conversation continued on her end, he lightly covered his phone with his hand.
She says hello too, Jamie.
Share a sleeping bag on the floor when we make a mattress fort in the room after we have a pillow fight. He smirked while his mother continued on in his silence. You weren't honestly sure that he was listening enough to have caught what she said. This was the closest approximation he'd ever gotten to the vague concept that was Baxter's parents, and it was such a small thing, watching as he spoke to one of them over the phone. It felt so radically different than it did with your other friends. You knew Kyra and Mr. Holden, just like you knew Derek, Randy, and Terry's parents. All you'd heard about Baxter's parents, other than that they were educated and old-fashioned, was that they didn't mind sending Baxter out to Sunset Bird for the summer. They wouldn't see him this season, and so you wouldn't see them. You had to wonder if someday you'd get the chance to meet them, or speak to them directly. Deflating air mattress? It didn't seem like a priority for Baxter. Another few hmms and yeses, Baxter's attention shifted to the front desk, which was slowly being vacated by the previous group.
Mother, this was lovely, but I do have to take my leave. Take care.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. You too.
And with only a brief goodbye, he hung up and pocketed his phone. He turned toward you, picking up his bag and suitcase.
Shall we go and check in?
Yeah. You trailed after him with your own luggage. The hotel receptionist smiled from behind a wide counter, her eyes somewhat weary from the day's work.
Good evening.
The receptionist nodded, offering her own greeting in reply, before asking if you were both checking in.
Exactly, and I would appreciate your assistance in doing so. The reservation should be for two rooms under Baxter Ward.
Handing over his driver's license and credit card, the receptionist made quick work of their computer system and slid 2 pairs of plastic cards through a machine. Bad news, everybody. It's not going to be the one-bedroom trope. Not doing the one-bed trope. It is, in fact, 2 separate bedrooms. No mix-ups in the reservations this time. You were going to be in room 194. Baxter was going to have the room next to you, 193. She picked up a map and drew a few arrows and lines. You were directed to take a left and head up the elevator or take the stairs to the 2nd floor. With keys and map handed off, you and Baxter departed from the front desk. So, did you want to take the elevators or stairs? You realized Baxter didn't immediately follow it. You turned back to him as he caught up, gesturing for you to wait. He dug out one of his key cards and offered it to you.
Now.
Elevator. Here. It may not be necessary, but I would be happy to let you have it in case.
He did just give me a key to his room. Sure, thanks. I'll take it. Fine. Fair is fair. You took out one of your own cards in exchange. Baxter gratefully took your card in hand, pleased to have your good faith in the matter. I'll show him trust. The executive decision was made to take the elevator up to the next floor, given all the bags. Truthfully, with only a night's worth of clothes and supplies, they weren't that heavy. What was more, it was only a floor up, but they'd installed an elevator for a reason, hadn't they?
It'd be a shame not to put their hard work to use.
Slip into my room and be my sneaky link. Where's the option for why the hell would I need a key to your room? I mean, you can turn it down. Like, you can turn down the offer. I don't know, it is weird. Like, it is a weird choice to go with. I don't know why I would need a key, and I mean, I'm not likely to need it. That said, if you are on the path to romance Baxter, in that case, you'd probably want his key so you could slip in and bow chicka chicka bow chicka chicka bow bow chicka chicka bow bow chicka chicka. Vienna sausage link. The halls of the hotel were wide. It was easy enough for two people to pass through beside each other, though you and Baxter had to sidestep to make room for others occasionally. As you approached the end of the path where your rooms sat beside one another, Baxter withdrew his keycard and held it against the digital lock with a fluid, practiced motion.
Would it be alright if we were to meet later this evening? It was a long drive, and I, at least, am in no rush to hurry off to the next activity.
You waved your hand to dispel any concerns, both real and imagined. Key to my room? No, honey bunny. Hell no. I don't trust any of you people. Sure, that's fine. I'll see you soon.
Excellent.
Take care, neighbor.
He winked, laughing as he disappeared inside his room and shut the door with a click. Tapping your card against the lock, you followed suit. In comparison to the hotel foyer, the room was cozier. Not by much, but it was much less grand in scale. One wall was laid precisely with wooden planks. At the center of the room, the headboard of the single king-size bed was situated by some nondescript painting. No, Trailer, I'm not giving anyone the key to my room. I'll knock before I enter. Would you give me a chance to respond before you entered? I don't think so. And hey, nice balcony out there, too. King-size bed, nice balcony. No means no. It didn't seem cramped, in part because of the glass doors that led out onto a balcony, and because of the nearby windows, which meant more light came into the room. It was bright even without the lamps on. The key to my heart? I lost that a long time ago. My locker code? $69.69.69. Aw, yeah. Want to borrow your math book? I don't know, it's a nice room. In the breeze of the quiet evening up in the mountains, the branches waved to say hello. Skeleton key, it'll unlock that heart. Setting down your stuff, you started unpacking toiletries and clothes before searching for a plug at the nightstand for your phone charger. As you unpacked and the sun rays slipped further out of the room, it occurred to you that you also owed a call to your loved ones. A promise was a promise. You meant to call her earlier when you were checking in, but it slipped your mind in between everything. Liz was still waiting. It didn't take more than a couple clicks through your contacts to pull up Liz's number. She'd been one of the last people you were texting on your way up before the signal cut out in the first place. The phone rang for a second before your sister's voice came through the other line. There was an exaggeration to her tone, a sense of suspicion.
So?
Jamie, this better be you and not some impersonator. I'm on to you, Ward. If that is in fact your real name. J'accuse! So, this is what I get for calling. Yes, absolutely. And since the actual Jamie would complain about it, you're real. The bit of French there does have me skeptical, though. That sounds like Baxter to me. Laughter bubbled up to the surface, with Liz joining in on her end. That was exactly what I wanted you to think. No more questions, Your Honor. There was no way of knowing for sure, but you were pretty confident she was rolling her eyes. Take another can be your locksmith. Uh-huh. I'm not buying that you suddenly have the capacity for three-dimensional chess. Isn't 3D chess normal chess? No. What is something you would say to prove you aren't the clown? I suppose if I were asked to prove if I'm not the clown, I would just be like, oh. Who the hell knows who's the clown? Maybe I am the clown. I don't know. I don't have any way of knowing. How will I know who to shoot? Don't shoot either of us! Don't shoot don't shoot anybody! My clone's probably as harmless and... Okay, so my clone probably has depression and is more of a threat to themselves than anyone else. You know? My clone just needs therapy the same as I do. Therapy and put them on antidepressants. Give my clone antidepressants. And my evil clone? Right, my evil clone is probably still that's my point. Even if my clone's evil, they're probably still depressed. They're still gonna have depression, so just leave them alone. Just find them a therapist, get them on some medication, help them work through their issues. It's again what's so often. That clone comes up. I'm going to kill you and steal your life. I'm just like, why? Why the hell do you want my life? I'm not doing it. You know what? If the clone wants to steal my life, they can have it. I'm not doing anything with it. If they feel like they can, if my clone feels like he can do a better job living my life, by all means. Evil or not, if they feel like they can live my life better than I can, I'm rooting for them. Should me and my clone in an abandoned root cellar and take my time to figure it out? I'm sure you will. Give me a second. I got a blow my nose. Give me a second. Anyway, I'm ashamed of my player character for not knowing about 3D chess. Yeah, that's definitely you. Moving on, I'm glad you got there safe and sound enough that you're keeping up with me. I still don't know about that Baxter guy. He's too formal and stiff for someone younger than me. But I guess he got you there in one piece. How's the lodge? It's kind of overwhelming. Baxter fits right in here, but I don't know. I'm not very comfortable looking around the building so far. Jamie. It's okay. I'll get used to it, I think. I can manage for a few days.
That's fine.
Alright, well, offer still stands. Call me if you need me to come get you. Thanks. Your older sister listened with the intensity of someone still handling an interrogation. This will do. Just make sure to have some fun for the rest of us, alright? Take pictures. Mom's already started asking why you haven't sent any. They want to see the inside of a car?
Right?
That's what I said! The conversation trailed on longer, Liz weighing in on speakerphone with what had been going on at home since he'd left. She mentioned that Cove stopped by at some point to drop something off from his dad and told her to tell you that he said hi. Eventually, Liz tapered off and, at the mention of her own sleepiness, she helpfully reminded you to go and get some rest before adding that you needed to color again tomorrow. The phone was promptly tossed aside in favor of preparing for the night. Then a gentle knock came at your door. Baxter, presumably. Baxter, correctly, as he was the only person standing there in the doorway once he opened it. Aye, come in. Bowing his head as he stepped inside, he offered a thanks for being quick with the invitation, instead of making him stand in the hallway. You want to see the Tesla? You came right on time. I just wrapped up with Liz.
How lovely. I'm sure that she was relieved to have heard from you, alive and well.
The curve of Baxter's smile widened while he took a quick look around your room. It couldn't be all that different from his own, but he regarded it as though it were.
So?
It appears that you've settled in quite nicely. It's late, so I won't keep you, but I did want to discuss our plans for tomorrow. Feel free to enjoy yourself in the morning without worrying about accommodating me. It should be easy to explore the town if you want, but the lodge has amenities you could also try if you're interested. There is a gym around, I believe, along with a pool and a complimentary breakfast if you're up early enough for it. As for the afternoon, evening, and night, I'd be pleased if we could spend it together.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll meet up with you later. Baxter didn't do early mornings, or mornings in general. It was no skin off your bone to let him sleep in, especially considering that this was supposed to be a vacation. Well, it was also always a vacation for Baxter, but the rationale held. He was always so considerate of you that it stood to reason to do the same for him. He nervously ran a hand through his hair before a semblance of his Baxter Ward patented confidence returned to his features.
I appreciate the understanding.
I thank you for your consideration. As for what we'll do with tomorrow, how would you feel about a hike?
Sounds terrible!
There's a lovely trail that starts directly from here. It loops up and around the forest at the back, then returns us to where we started. It's a bit of a longer path, so we could pack a lunch with us to take on the way. I can have it ordered and delivered ahead of time.
Jeez, that got dark, take another. You didn't mind the suggestion. You were already out here after all. Let's do it. He smiled graciously. Baxter had his heart set on that outing clearly. You'd made his day by joining the adventure.
Goodbye for today.
I'll look forward to it then.
With that, Baxter took his leave after offering a quiet goodnight. There were a few hours left before he had to be in bed, so he settled in for the first night of what continued to be a surreal experience. It was spent peacefully, and then you were drifting into an equally gentle dream. The sun peeked through the sheer curtains, the first part of the day, to greet you as you woke in a sprawling bed that wasn't your own. Maybe a few more minutes. Nothing urgent was happening, right? 10 minutes, 20 minutes, probably more passed before you considered leaving the safety of the sheets. But once you managed to unearth yourself from the blankets and wake up a bit, you went through your morning routine and considered the possibilities for the time that remained. Baxter wouldn't be meeting up with you until around the afternoon. Your growling stomach made the decision for you. The first thing on your agenda was getting breakfast. By the time your hunger was sated, Baxter hadn't contacted you. Hey, Jordan. I mean, I suppose character lived up by the beach, or grew up by the beach. Yeah, that's just what I was thinking. Taking another, my character grew up by the beach, presumably loved swimming, so you went to find where the pool was. Didn't seem swimming would be a likely possibility up in the mountains, but you were glad that you brought your gear anyway. After making the trip to your room to get your things, you were able to find the pool. In retrospect, you didn't know how you missed it. The chlorine hit you before you even stepped into the room. Out before you stretched what looked to be an Olympic-sized pool, with its water sparkling with cleanliness. Check my email. Give me a second, Jordan. No. Go away. No. Go away, nasty. Ugh. Go away, nasty crap. Happy Best Friends Day. Saw this and thought of you. Someone applied an update to the You're My Butter Half mural in Austin. You're my butthole. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that just... Ignore the prawn spam. It wasn't porn spam, actually. It's, fucking Zoom spam, actually. I don't know. That feels... You know, that seems... The mural was cute. You're my butter? That's kind of a cute thing. I don't know. Seems crude. A Zoom call? No, take another. The only reason I got Zoom... Literally, the reason I got Zoom was because was so that I could play some weird game with MG, which I still haven't actually gotten the chance to play with her yet. I don't know what game it is. She would not tell me. She said that if I knew it, that would ruin it. Hey, Bugsy. Against crudeness? No, I'm not against crudeness. Hey, Betty. What is this game? This game is our life, beginnings and always. It is a visual novel. Just sort of more of a narrative experience. Crudeness is fine, but they're spoiling a pun. That's what it is. It's replacing a pun with crudeness. What I have for supper? Fried chicken. I picked up some fried chicken, but from the Ready Hot counter at the grocery store when I went out for groceries. I do tropical fish. Almost 90% of my viewers are women. Like, according to my analytics, something like 87% of my 87 or 88% of my audience is women. I just don't do anything for the dudes, apparently. It wasn't in your best interest to go for a serious swim, having just eaten and about to go on a hike later that afternoon, so you waited around in the shallow end. Aw, thanks, trailer. By the time 11 rolled around, your phone hummed with a new text from Baxter. It was as formally worded as ever.
Good afternoon, Jamie. I will be ready for our hike shortly. I hope the amenities were to your liking.
It's been nice. See you soon. You're not a woman, Keefster? So you're one of the 10%, apparently. Buy me some chicken? No. It's too late for that.
Wonderful. I've always enjoyed how responsive you are. I will be ordering lunch in the interim. I thought sandwiches might suit our activities for the day. It should be easy to bring along and fine to eat cold. I would advise straying away from the paninis for that reason. I'll send along the menu shortly. Let me know what you'd prefer.
As promised, Baxter attached a perfectly formatted PDF with set options, which seemed increasingly more complex the lower you scrolled down the menu. Stupid t-shirt 10%er. There were options for next to everything. What bread, what fillings, what cheeses, what spreads. It was enough to make you forget what was available in a category as soon as you moved from one section to another. Am I in the top 1% of viewers? I don't know. I don't know if you'd be in 1% for anything of my viewership. But you hastily made your decision with the seconds still ticking by and texted your order to Baxter, who replied with a blushy, smiling emoji.
An excellent choice. I'll be waiting in the lobby for the delivery then. Make your way down there as soon as you're able. Take care.
After sending off that last text, you tucked your phone away and hurried to your room. Good shoes were a must when it came to hikes, along with a full water bottle. With the weather and time of day being what it was, you hoped you might catch the last dregs of the cool morning air before the afternoon really set in. Where's Jada? Not here yet, Jordan. Baxter root sandwich? I don't know, trailer. Probably in the top 1% of commenters. But only because I only have, 20 people who ever comment. 10,000 subscribers, and I've got a dozen who actually comment during my streams. Once you were satisfied you had everything that you'd need, you returned to the front of the hotel. The lobby was as cavernously vacant as ever, so it wasn't hard to find the back of a distinct head of black and white hair near the fireplace, with a bag of what were potentially sandwiches. Yet you were certain it wasn't Baxter. It couldn't have been. Sure, his shoes were black. The pants were dark gray. He had a gray bag, too, which all aired to the side of the monochromatic. But the shirt. His shirt. That man was wearing khaki? It was as if you'd found a cryptid in the flesh. You never thought you'd see the day where Baxter Ward was wearing the color that wasn't... well, that he was wearing any color at all. Of course, you knew it wasn't actually a stranger with the same unique hairstyle and his body type, but it was hard not to joke about it. Baxter turned at the sound of your footsteps.
Ah,
Jamie. He grinned, jaw tense. Baxter probably would have been more comfortable trotting around the lobby in nothing more than his, presumably, black and white underwear. Hi. Do you need to change? Beige wasn't as shell-shocking as something that was, say, highlighter yellow, but on Baxter it might as well have been. He took a deep breath. A very deep breath. With his eyes closed and his hand unintentionally tightening its grip around the bag, his answer finally came out in the same exhale. I only brought one shirt that was suitable for a hike with me on this trip. I'd been certain I wouldn't need more than that. He looked away, hand brushing through his hair again as he worked to find the words. After you left, I found this among my things. Baxter grimaced. He looked at the errant shirt as if he'd been hit with a splash from a mud puddle. And regrettably, I did not find anything else. This is the shirt I brought for outdoor activities. Poor guy. The fates would have it that I only found out when there was no time to run out and get a replacement. Thus leaving me with a few remaining options. A formal button-down, one of my designer tops, silk pajamas, or... Only one shirt for outdoor activities, Honey Bunny. Only one shirt that's suitable for hiking. He gestured to the cocky shirt with both finality and defeat. So you own it? Baxter shook his head emphatically. The light in his eyes betrayed his expression with some delight that at least you found his misfortune entertaining enough to prod at.
never.
No. I suppose I must have accidentally stolen it from a roommate. I don't know who else would own a cocky button-down other than that prep. My memories of the final pack at dawn before I set out to California are hazy, to say the least. I had believed, at the time, that I took a pale gray, sturdy cotton shirt for occasions like this. The low lighting and my waning focus in the moment betrayed me. Of course, morning Baxter struck again. Sighing, he straightened the thieved attire. If he was going to be unpresentable, it should at least be decently so. The sandwich bag fell against his hip as his eyes met yours. I must ask that you keep this a secret, Jamie. Telling me he looks good? I figured try to make him feel better. Just say you were high. Come on, it's not that bad. You look good. His eyes widened at the sudden compliment. Oh? Well, I can't say I expected that. I never expected this either. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a pleasant surprise.
Thank you.
As is your reaction, Jamie. As unhappy with his predicament as he was, there was something undeniably sweet about the fact he hurried to make it at the risk of keeping you waiting. The collar of his shirt was crumpled, and parts of it were wrinkled, likely from the hasty packing after he finally discovered the horrible mistake. The latter couldn't be fixed without an iron, but at least the collar could be smoothed over. His embarrassment managed to ease into laughter. Baxter covered his mouth to stifle the chuckles that echoed through the empty foyer. You tried your best to keep from cackling any more than you already did at his poor, beige-influenced expense.
Well, regardless of what color I may be wearing, we should still be able to continue with our plans. It isn't as though anyone will see me in public like this. Who will the trees tell?
It really isn't as bad as you think. There's nothing wrong with being off-theme sometimes.
Au contraire, tell that to my poor, suffering ego. Years of tradition wasted.
Shaking your head, you adjusted the straps of your bag on your shoulders. Okay, if you're done. Baxter gave you a world-weary glance, as if to say he was already greatly limiting how much he could have gone on about it. We can head on out.
Let's.
He packed away the sandwiches into the bigger, properly grey bag, truly ending his lament about the state of his attire. Once he was certain the food was not liable to be flattened, Baxter gestured for you to follow him out of the hotel and onto the nearby trailhead behind the building. The path initially was paved and clearly marked. As you continued at a leisurely pace, it eventually narrowed into a larger swath of evergreen trees and beaten ground. Ooh, pretty. Pretty scenery. The mountain air was sharper than the sea breeze you were so used to. Instead of salt, you could smell pine in between the wafts of liberally applied sunscreen. With a pleasant breeze and a coolness drawn from a stream, the weather was more than ideal for a hike. Tree boughs provided cover too, hiding you both from the high afternoon sun. Foliage rustled at your feet as your shoes kicked up the fallen turf. The path wasn't big enough for you to walk side by side, so Baxter took the front. After some prolonged silence, he spoke up.
Perfect.
I am glad that this trail matches what I saw online. It seemed like an easy hike as it lacks steep inclines. The path ahead is clear.
Yeah, it's been nice so far.
And the company makes this all the more charming.
You're looking pretty comfortable on the trail. Do you hike a lot? He turned his gaze up to the tree canopy, considering the question for a moment as leaves crunched underfoot, and the path sloped uphill.
I don't go often, but I am quite used to it if that is the question. I'm not sure if I'd consider it among my personal hobbies, but I'm not averse to it.
I love it.
I welcome the opportunity, in fact, when it is available.
I honestly wouldn't have figured that. His easy smile turned into a smirk as he pushed a wayward branch out of your way.
Excellent. Then I will take it as a good thing that I am not yet out of surprises. Though, I would not call myself a mountaineer proper.
He chuckled. Stopping in place at a partial ascent, Baxter glanced over his shoulder at you and watched for any signs of difficulty with your footing.
I may be fit to impress on a day hike similar to this, but I knew some people who truly could call themselves wilderness aficionados. The types that you could see in a reality survival show, I'd wager, in the Alaskan wilds, fighting a bear for salmon.
You paint such beautiful pictures with your words.
Thank you. I'm speaking of the Murrays, the parents and their 2 teens who would regularly go on backpacking trips that would last days, and they'd sleep outside in the middle of the woods.
Certainly.
What's more, they enjoyed rappelling down cliff sides. Certainly they had safety gear, but I can't fathom willingly going to such degrees.
He is not the one, unfortunately.
Or rather, it might be more apt to say that I can't imagine surviving them.
Baxter continued on about some of the Murrays' exploits, and a little of his own reservations about anything else under the sun, including scuba diving. Though you had plenty to say about that between Mr. Holden's entire business and living so close to the ocean. Marty Marito? But it wasn't long before he decided to stop for lunch. It had already been a few hours since you had breakfast, and Baxter hadn't eaten anything. He hadn't eaten anything yet for the day. There weren't picnic tables along the path, so the task fell to you to find somewhere to take a break. It happened to be the case that you saw a nice and sunny spot with some nice flat rocks first. I already know the one. Cove is the one. Take another. We already know that Cove is the one. How about we take a lunch break over there? Following your raised arm, Baxter eventually nodded in agreement. The two of you headed over to the stones and shrugged off your packs. After digging through his bag's contents, he produced the two sandwiches and handed yours over. The sound of crinkling beeswax paper unwrapping announced the start of lunch. My family went to the Redwoods when I was a kid. Have you been? Baxter shook his head, taking another bite out of his meal as he bid you to continue. We went in an RV with the Holdens and had sandwiches then, too. But a bird stole Mr. Holden's, and he chased after that bird like it was his last meal.
Really?
Really now? Ma tried to tell him that we had literally 1,000 ingredients to make more, but he was so sure he could get it. So he kept chasing after it, and... The story trailed on longer than you intended, but Baxter was interested every step of the way. Can be the two? Two is better than... Fair enough. He'd be into the polycule. He is, I'm pretty sure he's pan. He would be absolutely interested in polycule with me and Cove. While stuffing your face, keeping up a conversation fell off the list of priorities. Baxter followed your lead and dedicated himself to his own sandwich. Real silence was avoided thanks to the delightful world around you. The rustle of leaves, the bubbling of water, even a small songbird flitted by overhead before landing on a nearby branch. It seemed to stare directly at you and chirped. It was so picturesque that it belonged on a postcard. For the mundane activity of eating lunch, it was almost too much. Could one be overly serene? Thanks for letting me come here with you.
Of course.
I'm all too happy that you accepted my invitation.
He polished off his sandwich first, and then wiped his fingers on a paper napkin. He had been certain to pack those.
Perhaps I am being fanciful, but this feels almost dreamlike.
Huh. You understood where he was coming from. Up on this mountain, your everyday life felt so far away. It was far away. You traveled for miles to be here. This time you were both far from home and in the middle of the unfamiliar. It was nature's domain, untamed in a different way than your experiences with the ocean. I know what you mean. Baxter reached out and grabbed a leaf from the ground, twirling it around with his fingers.
Exactly.
As you worked on finishing your own lunch, your beige-clad companion laid down on the flat rock you'd set up as your little picnic area. His hands were folded over his stomach and his eyes closed. Your ears strained for any signs of his snoring, half convinced that he really put himself back to sleep. He didn't seem the type to, but you never really knew. Enjoying yourself there? Baxter murmured in reply. At first he thought he might say something witty back, but he stretched out his legs instead.
Let me lie here a moment. The sun's quite comforting. You're free to join me.
What could you say to that? Nothing. Instead, you did bask in the warmth of the sun alongside him. He laughed when you jokingly mentioned that you understood why lizards got such a kick out of the behavior.
You know.
The forest that I grew up with had different foliage. At least 60% of the plants growing here only exist in this climate.
Oh, really? How did Baxter happen to have that fact memorized? Maybe he'd studied before this trip? Although with him, it was not outside the realm of possibility that he knew beforehand just 'cause. Baxter's expression twitched. If that wasn't suspicious, then at least 60% of your observational power was wrong. Under your scrutiny, he shrugged and finally answered your question.
No.
He grinned like the Cheshire Cat, self-satisfied and smug. His eyes glittered with amusement.
I entirely made that off the top of my head.
Lying jerk. You lying liar, Baxter.
Although, since I know truly nothing about California wildlife, it may reflect reality after all. Probably not, but I can't rule it out completely.
He laughed at his nonsense. He was so blunt about it. At your mirth, his grin grew wider, and he regaled you with other fake nature facts. He spoke about the California mountain hare, the only North American rodent that ate a large diet of bees and was entirely made up by a man who, normally, dressed in monochrome. But the meal was over by that point, and you did have a trek ahead before you could return to the hotel. Trash and scraps were thrown into the delivery bag. Baxter stuffed it into his normal bag.
Good.
Leave no trace.
Yep, looks like we got everything. With everything stowed away, the two of you slid off the rock and rejoined the path. Both you and Baxter were fully recharged from the lunch break. You continued the hike steadily, keeping at a good pace. Without warning, Baxter rooted himself in the middle of the path.
Oh, look at that.
He jerked his head, and you followed his gaze. Further out of on his side of the trail was the stream, flowing swiftly. But you immediately knew what part of the scene caught his attention. Laying across the banks, a tree had fallen to create a natural bridge. You stepped around it to get a better vantage point. The trunk had to be 3 feet thick and covered in vibrant green moss. Leaves had long fallen from the few remaining branches. Baxter's eyes stayed on it. Bright eyes stayed on it, and he grinned all the while.
Exciting.
1 minute, please. I need to walk across that. It's too perfect to simply pass on by.
He took a large step and promptly left the path. A twig snapped. Yes, I want to do that too.
Glad to hear it.
Then follow me. Let us proceed on our fortuitous adventure.
He slowed down so you could catch up. He led the way to the stream, warning you of the various obstacles he dodged on the forest floor. Finally, he skipped over some stones and then squeezed himself between a group of thick bushes. His efforts were surprisingly graceful. You clambered on the rocks behind him and took a moment to assess the bushes yourself. Going all the way around would be a hassle. There was a small gap under one of the bushes, but unless you were prepared to crawl, you didn't think you'd fit. You followed Baxter's path, lightly bending a few branches out of your way. You got through it without any scratches. Tulahati, he is kind of a haughty tropical. Now through the gauntlet, catching up with Baxter was easy. This close to the stream bank, it was mostly more stones and short grasses. Baxter solidly placed a foot on the trunk suspended over it. He tested his weight, then rocked his heel to shake the bridge. The tree gave no signs of giving under pressure. No matter what he did, it wasn't budging.
Excellent.
The safety check complete, he gingerly lifted his other foot and stood fully on the collapsed trunk. Even if it was stuck, the wood had to be slick. Wet and round weren't an ideal combination. Your forehead crinkled. Baxter showed no concern for that and walked further along an inch at a time until he was above the water. One wrong move, and he'd be in that river. You carefully climbed on. First, you sat down, then pulled up your feet. The damp bark was unpleasant, especially on your knees as you first crouched. However, when you stood up, the tree stayed firm. You breathed a sigh of relief. He went across the stream with his arms out in light steps, heel, toe, heel, toe. It was almost like he was floating on air, his movements smooth and assured. Yeah, you weren't having any trouble either. You shimmied along after Baxter with confidence. The tree was more scared of you than you were of it. When the moss grew thick over the trunk, it squished underneath your shoe. However, it was firmly attached, and your foot never slipped. As long as you didn't falter, you'd keep your balance. Hey, Madison. Building a Lego set, and this will be the perfect background. Thanks, Madison. Log was large enough that even with how round it was, you had plenty of room. When you reached the halfway point, directly over the heart of the stream, Baxter paused.
Is that fine?
Sorry to block the path. Can we take a minute here?
Sure. He twisted, pivoting his feet so he'd face the water. You copied him and breathed in the beauty. Together, you stood on top of a fallen tree as the stream flowed right underneath. The water was clear. Tiny fish darted in and out of hiding places. It was its own little universe, tucked away at the top of a mountain. Friendly hand grab. Your hand found Baxter. You took hold of him, and he squeezed you back.
I am quite grateful for my impeccable balance in cases like this.
How often can you really get into situations like this? Just walk. Key really is to just walk. Same thing as when crossing a stream via rocks. You gotta keep walking. If you stop, you lose your balance. Probably, yeah. I imagine so. Take another. You just gotta, confident. You just need to be confident. Careful, but confident.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Suddenly, there was a splash in the stream below. A ripple spread across the water, but the cause of it remained a mystery. There was nothing to be seen. Baxter restored his attention to the log. He tapped on the trunk, kicking off a loose remnant of bark.
We don't actually need to go all the way across. Nothing particularly enthralling is over there.
Bravo.
I've enjoyed our little tryst very much, but I believe this is the curtain call.
All right. You led the charge off of the tree, Baxter's hand warm in yours. You both kept each other grounded until you actually reached the ground. That was magical.
It truly was fantastical. Remember how at lunch I mentioned that this all reminded me of a dream?
Good hair game. He does drone. He's got good hair. I imagine he dyes his hair. I'm pretty sure he mentioned that he dyes his hair. But he keeps it styled well, and it looks good. It's good hair.
Up above the rushing water, standing in a sunbeam deep in the woods, I cannot imagine a more picturesque scene. Back to the trail.
You nodded and started squeezing your way past the vegetation in your way. Baxter followed you for a change. Finally, the path was under your feet. It sure was faster than trekking directly through the overgrowth.
On we go.
As your hike resumed, Baxter's jaunty attitude stood out. This entire trip he had seemed different, more light-hearted. Usually when he was in a playful mood, it was more teasing. He was still very controlled. But out here, now, it wasn't the same. Maybe because he was in the middle of nowhere, he felt extra free. Or maybe it was because he'd already broken character with his unintentionally stolen shirt. Or, and this was the strangest possibility to consider, maybe it was entirely normal for him to act like this and you didn't know. Gradually, it grew darker and darker. Less light made it through the canopy of leaves above you. The sun slipped behind the surrounding mountains. It was well into evening when you caught sight of the hotel.
Ah, we've arrived.
To be honest.
Honestly, I am having many regrets.
His tone was light and jokey, but there was something boldly truthful to his words.
I should have reserved the rooms for much longer. Everything is ending much too soon for my taste.
He rubbed a hand through his hair, exhaustedly sweeping it back into place.
However, at this point, there is no helping it.
Yeah. Another year, maybe. Another time. You returned to the warm lights of the lobby. The plush red carpet squished in a strangely decadent way, compared to how gross you felt from tromping around the woods all day. Baxter halted you mid-stride with a question.
What are your plans now?
Shower? You hadn't thought that far, but Baxter didn't pause long enough for you to answer.
If you are willing, we could eat dinner together. For example, I have heard the room service here is divine. We could also go somewhere else, but I'd require a few minutes to change.
I don't mind hiding away from the public with you.
You discovered my evil plan.
He sighed dramatically as you chuckled at his fake shame.
I should have expected you'd figure me out. My true desire is returning to the room and relaxing, rather than cleaning up at this hour of the night.
No worries, I'm not judging.
That's wonderful.
I appreciate it. Now once we order food, then tonight will be perfect. Perhaps I'll have a salad. I swear it's not because we have been surrounded by leaves all day.
Your stomach gurgled at the mention of food. The new plan was just in time, and you headed straight up to Baxter's room. He led the way to his suite like the hotel was the back of his hand, though it was a simple layout. But under his confident guidance, you reached the destination and he dropped your bags on the floor. The carpet muffled the thump. Baxter spread his now free arms widely to welcome you in.
Please take a seat wherever you'd like.
Baxter moved towards the nightstand and scrunched up a pamphlet on hotel services. You sat down at the side table. Baxter flipped through the booklet until he spied the menu.
Found it.
He joined you around the table and placed the menu down so both of you could read it. At a glance, most of the options were classic comfort foods. It matched the cabin in the woods aesthetic that the hotel was going for. Salad is gross. I eat animals that eat salad. Indeed. Baxter likes it sweaty and dirty. Yep. The one time I eat salad is Philo's because they have an amazing vinaigrette. However, it also had a sprinkling of more high-end options to cater to a certain set of its clientele. It couldn't be understated how weird the concept of getting lobster in a hotel was. All entrees came with seasonal veggies and a homemade roll. In addition, you could also pick a side of mashed potatoes, fries, French onion soup, or a salad. Baxter was not as decisive as usual. You weren't sure if that meant he liked the options, or was struggling to find something he actually wanted. You considered the options for yourself and decided on prime rib. Prime rib sounds good, right? Amazing vinaigrette. Oh, I'm sorry, Jordan. I appreciated the email. I did appreciate the email. I'm sorry. I appreciated it. Get that meat. I mean, prime rib is just good. As for the side, you picked your favorite of the list. I think what it is. Like, I assume that mural is probably somewhere public, right? Like, a silly cutesy mural like that. Like, is that somewhere that kids are gonna see it? I suppose that's a crucial aspect. Like, is it somewhere that kids are likely to see it? Because if it is, the cutesy thing is going to be better than the crude thing. Not that kids don't love crudity as well. It's probably not real. Oh. Okay. I'm a mom. I worry about that too. Alright, fair enough. In that case, my only remaining issue with it is spoiling the wordplay. Not that it's particularly clever wordplay that they, you're my butter. It's not particularly clever wordplay, but, Anyway, yeah, fries.
There's nothing standing out on the menu for me, but that makes it easy. I'll get the risotto and a side salad.
So, you're getting a bowl of leaves after all.
I am indeed.
Baxter confirmed your order again, as well as repeating his own, before swanning over to the room phone. He dialed room service and placed the order promptly.
Goodbye.
My butthole.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye.
He hung up the call and sat down in the corner of the bed. He tapped his fingers on his leg. All that was left was to wait. He decided to spend the time cooling down from the hike and cleaned up a bit. Baxter cranked up the AC and washed his face with a damp towel. You collected a bucket of ice from the hallway ice machine and treated yourself to some crisp water. About 30 minutes after the order was put in, a knock rattled the door. Baxter volunteered to get it.
Hello.
He opened the door and let in a waiting staff member. The employee rolled in a cart carrying literal silver platters. They set out the food on the table for you. Hey, Great Fart. Hey, alien tourist. Baxter vegetarian? Don't think so. Don't think he's vegetarian, it's just... Please enjoy your dinner. Let us know if you need anything else.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Privately, you were impressed by the fanciness of the presentation. The staff member made their farewells, leaving you to your meal. You reconvened around the table once more.
Well.
Couldn't find a white broccoli weasel brain meme? Hey, Susan. Feel like this character should have a Brooklyn accent? He's actually from, Oregon. So, yeah, he's a West Coaster. Or is it Washington? Might be Washington. I think he's from Washington. Is it Oregon or Washington? I think he might be from Washington State. So I'm pretty sure he's Washington State. Either way, he is West Coast. So. I suppose Oregon isn't really coast. But it's close to the coast. It's not that far. It's western U.S. anyway. Yeah, I think he's Washington. He's from Washington State, so closer to Seattle. Not actually from Seattle, but he's closer to Seattle than Brooklyn. By, several hundred miles. And hi, Susan.
This food comes from the restaurant in the hotel. It's not a small operation preparing it.
Oregon is on the coast? I thought Oregon was right just to the east of Washington. Not quite coast. Shows what I know about U.S. geography. Oh? Chatting and chewing happened in turns. The topic inevitably came to your preferences for food.
Everyone always talks about fries and ice cream going together well. But honestly, they're missing out on the obvious.
On the coast between California and Oregon. For some reason, I thought California stretched all the way up to Washington. Well, I know Washington is on the coast. I know Washington is the West Coast. Couldn't quite remember the geography of the, of that area. For some reason, I was thinking Oregon was on the eastern side of the eastern side of Washington rather than the southern side. Decide Oregon and Washington is Idaho, then Montana. Alright. Well, I will remember none of this. Take another. One of these days, I should try again to see if I can remember all 50 U.S. states. It's an interesting little exercise to do. I think name all 50 right now. I mean, I can't, like, that's a lot of states to name on camera. It's a lot to do on camera with oh, no, hell no, for the capitals. I only know, like, a very small handful of state capitals. I know Albany is the capital of New York. That is all. I think Providence is the capital of Rhode Island. Anyway, they're missing out on the obvious. Fries and whipped cream are even better. It's still the sweet and salty combination, but you don't have to deal with cold fries. That wasn't even the first strange food he brought to the conversation. He'd start off with something innocuous and then slip in an oddity to watch your reaction. How many were real, and how much fell into the realm of 60% unique plants, i.e., complete and utter nonsense? NYC? Nope, Albany is the capital of New York State. Have you ever thought of trying fries with pies? You teased. You don't think I'm being serious? No, you didn't think he was serious. It takes a lot more to find good flavor combinations than rhyming. If it worked like that, then nothing would ever go well with oranges. Sure, Baxter. All the provinces of Canada? Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, and Labrador, PEI, Manitoba. Was blanking on the name of Manitoba. I knew it started with an M. But yeah, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. I think that's all of them. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, BI, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC. Yep, that's all of them. Yukon, Whitehorse, or Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. I think in the past I've sometimes forgotten Nova Scotia when trying to remember all the provinces. Yeah, I mean, Canada's got 3 provinces, or 10 provinces, 3 territories, so it's not that difficult. State capitals is a little bit harder for, or provincial capitals, not quite as easy. Toronto is capital of Ontario. Quebec City for Quebec. And I believe Victoria, I think, might be the capital of BC. Yukon for the Northwest, or Yellowknife for the Northwest Territories. Whitehorse for Yukon. Iqaluit for Nunavut. Saskatchewan, Regina? Regina for Saskatchewan. I believe Calgary is the capital of Alberta. Nothing does go well with oranges. to have geography quiz night? Manitoba. Winnipeg, I think, for Manitoba. Damn, for the Maritimes. Fredericton for PEI, maybe? For one of them. Fredericton for one of them. Damn, I'm blanking on the maritime capitals. Halifax. Halifax for Nova Scotia? Hey, Lily. I think Halifax for Nova Scotia. Or is that Newfoundland? Pretty sure Nova Scotia. Looking dapper in that shirt. Thanks, Lily. Yeah. I'll need to refresh myself on the maritime capitals after this stream. Because I am blanking on some of them. Fredericton is for one of them. I just can't remember which. I want to say PEI. Wrong for Alberta. Oh, it is Edmonton? I couldn't remember if it was Calgary or Edmonton for Alberta. Alberta sucks anyway. Who cares about Alberta? Anyway, getting back to the game. Sure, Baxter. After many food admissions that made Baxter either the king of weird taste buds or a reigning jester, dinner came to an end. It's not Calgary? Right. That's why I said Edmonton. I couldn't remember which it was. So, yeah. Edmonton, Alberta. When you glanced at the clock, you found that it was later than you ever would have guessed. It had been a long day. Sitting back in your chair, you stretched your arms up. Your legs were feeling the effects of traipsing uphill for miles. A yawn bubbled up when your phone rang. Who'd be calling you at this time? You pulled out your phone to check if it was anything that mattered or a spam call. Liz's name showed on the screen. Right, of course your sister wouldn't wait any longer for the mandatory check-in. You were late. At least you hadn't jumped straight to the police.
In that case...
You're welcome to answer that if you'd like. I can give you privacy.
No, it's my sister. You don't have to go anywhere. You tapped the screen to answer the call and put it on speaker. That way both of you could say hello. Hey, Liz.
Hey.
Surprise check-in, Jamie. Are you still alive? Did that Victorian-era emo man give you any trouble? God damn, Liz! Just murdering this poor man. Liz just keeps murdering this poor guy. Victoria-era emo man. Okay, yeah, gotta laugh. You laughed hysterically. Victorian, what? You were choking. For all her attempts to keep you safe, Liz was going to be your cause of death. Baxter was already leaning on the table with his elbows propped up on the counter. Now he lazily rested his chin on one of his fists.
Hello.
Hello, that's certainly a unique description. I can't say I've ever heard the likes of it before.
Baxter's a kink for being humiliated? Probably. Oh. She paused. Liz was now aware she said that in front of the so-called Victoria-era emo man.
So what?
I stand by it. Hello to you, Baxter. I'm making sure that everything is well with my little sibling. You understand. I do, completely. Fine. So, again, what are you doing? She's not cock-blocking Take Another. He wasn't going to be getting anything tonight anyway, Take Another. My heart, my soul, and my body belong only to Cove. Cove's the only cock I'm interested in, and I probably haven't even gotten that one yet. We just had room service for dinner. Sheesh, lucky. I had to make my own dinner like a peasant. Sorry, you'll survive. Cornwall sucks. It does, tourist.
Rude.
What is this? Your let them eat cake moment? Despite Liz's retort, you could hear her muffle a cackle. Maybe I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. Need free love? Not my problem. The two of you went back and forth a while longer while Baxter watched with increasing entertainment. Anyways, clearly you're still breathing, so I'll let you go.
Bye.
See you tomorrow, kiddo. Bye, Liz. See you then. Let Baxter slide that bratwurst in.
Take care.
I will. Make sure you take care of them. On that slightly threatening note, Liz hung up. Baxter's lip twitched upwards. Your family is charmingly protective. I realize that more and more every day. Liz is hot too? I mean, kinda. That's right, and you shouldn't forget it. I don't believe I could. Your sister, in particular, makes me highly aware of how fortunate I am that your family seems to approve of me thus far. I am nearly a stranger, and I cannot deny that I am imposing a great deal on your free hours. It's good to be cautious.
Honestly.
And truly, I do like your family. At least as much as I can from the little we've interacted. Baxter is a 10, Liz is a 6. On a good day, he can do better. I mean, Liz is a 7 at least. Liz is a 7, maybe even an 8. Speaking of... He lifted his head, and his hand fell under his chin instead. He furrowed his brow. In general, I would never dare to be this presumptuous, but I cannot deny that I am deeply curious about you as a person. So, I'll venture to ask if you'd be willing to share more about your family history. Oh. It made sense. Your family wasn't a mother and father who had children born to them. He knew that much. There were more ways than one that you all could have come together. You didn't remember ever explaining anything to him. That's fine. I don't mind talking about it. You could at least give him the highlights. Baxter humored many of your questions about him. Getting to know each other better was a two-way street. I'm adopted, and Liz is too. We're from different places, and we're adopted at different times. We weren't even born in the same country. It's amazing that we met each other at all. But we were both really young. We spent almost entire lives together.
I see.
Well, it's fantastic how you have made your own beautiful family. Indeed, Tropical. Thanks, Baxter. His words made you feel warm inside. You respected how easily he took it. It made you wonder about his family situation. He had been rather closed-mouthed about it so far. And, again, the two-way street analogy came to mind. Are you and your parents blood-related? Oh, yes, we certainly are. His voice took on a certain amused bent. His lips stretched thin. My parents might have been,
My parents might have well been through with me many times over if I wasn't their own flesh and blood.
Before you could ask what he meant by that, he chuckled.
Sorry, no, that is me being dramatic. Their family and I'm their son. That is what matters at the end of the day, blood related or not.
Okay. It's nice your parents care about you. You wouldn't voice a flicker of worry.
I'm thankful for that as well.
Now.
If I wasn't the boy they raised together in any capacity, then there would be problems.
He laughed some more and brought his fingers to his lips. That topic was over.
Well,
He pulled at the collar of his roommate's shirt. His gaze searched out the room's ticking clock.
Good night.
it has been a delightful day, but I should not linger forever. There is much to do tomorrow. Good night, Jamie.
Bit harsh to say to an adopted person. I mean, that might be why he changed, that might be why he sort of changed it. He stood, and with a slight wave, he grabbed his bag to go. You wondered how long it would take for him to remember whose room this was. Baxter left without another word. The door swung shut behind him. You sunk lower in your chair, getting comfortable as you waited for his inevitable return. Any moment now, he'd come tiptoeing back. Almost as if on cue, the door slammed open. Baxter came through it, walking stiltedly with the most forced smile possible.
This one's my room. The other is yours.
Nothing ruins a good dramatic exit like having to come back in like, this is my room. That's funny. Okay, that's really funny. I gotta. That one makes me laugh. That moment makes me genuinely laugh. Your laughter burst like a dam, flooding his room.
You were aware.
Baxter's voice was polite, but laced with embarrassment. He'd been gone long enough that you wondered if he'd actually tried to use his key on your room and failed. Rather than pushing him any further, you got to your feet. With you moving to leave, Baxter found his shoes very interesting. I hope you get some sleep. Baxter hesitated to reply. You paused, sensing that he would answer. He just needed a little more time to choose the right words. Rose embarrassed, yep. I mean, he walked out of the room, he walked out of the room before realizing, wait.
Well,
I do intend to sleep, but in truth I don't expect it will be soon. I will be packing after you take your leave, and after that, who knows?
What do you mean? What else could you do? Baxter's gonna jerk? Baxter chuckled and tapped his foot.
I said, who knows, didn't I?
You frowned, defeated. He snorted at you, and it was difficult keeping a straight face.
all right.
Okay, that's not exactly correct. I'll admit I know myself fairly well. I also am aware of a drink station in the lobby that is open at every hour. There's also a fire that stays lit all throughout the night as well. I'm expecting that instead of being in bed like a proper young man, I will end up in the lobby with a cup of tea.
Would you mind some company? Hot drinks by the fire sounded lovely. You hoped that he was fine if you wandered down yourself.
Oh?
He narrowed his eyes and his smile curved up more.
Am I the bad influence here, or are we enablers to one another?
You're a very bad influence.
There. I apologize for that. Not enough to cease, however.
His amusement was tangible, and you were already looking forward to the next outing.
I'll text you when I've made it to the lobby.
His eyes twinkled with a familiar mischief. You'd keep your phone close.
See you.
Good night, Jamie. For now.
With that, you twisted the handle and left. You made it to your own, identical room, conveniently right next door. The door's deadbolt clicked shut behind you, and you flicked on the lights. Despite the new illumination, the suite was not as bright as Baxter's room. How was Baxter's room so lively while yours was this? You sat in your cold bed and sighed. A familiar carpet was spread beneath your feet. The walls were a match. The same pictures were attached to the wall. Physically, there wasn't a difference. The change was the fact that you were now by yourself. After all, spending all day with Baxter's grin, you were lonely in its absence. But at least that wouldn't last long. You'd see Baxter again soon, one way or another. The last, and only, full day of your mini-vacation was drawing to a close, and the warm night pressed black and silent against the window panes. You tucked yourself into bed for a break, but it left all the room lights on. You didn't want to fall asleep yet, naturally. You idled the minutes away by counting the planks in the ceiling. Eventually, there came the jingle of a text arriving. Unlocking your phone, you saw that Baxter sent you a message. It was short and to the point.
I'm downstairs.
He'd finally finished his packing. There was no need to respond. He knew you were coming. You wiggled out from under the covers and hopped off the bed, eager for the secret meeting. You crept into the hall, which was brightly lit, although all the other patrons were holed up in their rooms for the night. No staff were manning the front desk. It was dead quiet and still. As you padded your way downstairs, the omnipresent silence seemed like it was something you could touch. A thin blanket swaddling you. Your footsteps and breathing felt muffled. In spite of that, the air was fairly cold. The grand foyer had high ceilings, and the mezzanine floors and wide-open space invited a permanent draft. The central fireplace might come across totally pointless in the middle of summer in California, but that wasn't giving it its due. Now blazing bravely against the chill, it was a welcome beacon of comfort. Surrounding the hearth was a raised stone platform. There you could see a lone seated figure silhouetted against the flames. It was Baxter, warming himself by the fire. A paper cup was clutched in his hands, a pale film of steam rising from it. He hadn't changed into his pajamas, still sporting that khaki interloper. He must have counted on nobody else being around to see the horror that late. The dull thud of feet on the carpeted floor heralded your approach. His portrait smoothly transitioned from a profile to a three-quarter view. His eyes met yours, and he grinned.
Jamie, glad you could make it.
Rolling the thin cup slowly between his palms, Baxter jerked his head over to one side, drawing your attention to the long table up against the far wall.
Very well.
The drink station is over there if you'd care to partake. A beverage of some kind might be just the thing to top off our late-night rendezvous.
You nodded. You could use a drink. After crossing the lobby, you stood in front of the refreshment bar. It was covered in a thick tablecloth the color of fresh snow, and a neat arrangement of clean crockery had been laid out on top. There were a couple of jugs of hot water, and a wide selection of different drink packets and individual tea bags. Next to those, 2 more urns of pre-made coffee had been labeled regular and decaf. Carafe? Carafe? Oh, good night, Jordan. Good to the guy. I never looked up how that's pronounced. It's not a word I hear very often. Carafe? Carafe? I'm looking it up. Carafe. Carafe. Alright. So yeah. Well, there we go. carafe off to one side seemed to house spiced apple cider. The menagerie of liquid containers was completed with 3 smaller silvery ones, each containing a different kind of milk. They weren't stingy on the options, that was for sure. Rhymes with giraffe. Carafe. Carafe. You decided to go for... maybe some cider? Get some apple cider? Hot chocolates you can get. Hot chocolate is something you can get in plenty of places. Hot cider is probably not something that comes up very often. You probably don't get a lot of options for get wired up. Cider. You picked up a cup and poured yourself a measure of the cider. It had been heated, and you were treated to a complex bouquet. Apples, cinnamon, of course, they had some trouble placing all the fragrances. Need that caffeine? Yeah. Need that energy to stay up all night with Baxter. Aw, yeah. You snapped on a lid and ambled over to the fireplace again, Baxter raising his drink to tap it gently against yours.
Welcome back. What's your poison? I went for a bracing cup of peppermint tea myself.
I got cider.
Delightful.
A momentary flash of realization crossed his face, and then he let out a huff of amusement.
It appears we find ourselves out to drinks yet again, Jamie. I must apologize for the lack of originality. I promise I do other things in my spare time occasionally.
It really was starting to become a theme with the pair of you. You snorted quietly into your cup. Baxter scooted over on his perch, patting the stonework with his free hand to indicate that you should take a seat beside him. You plopped yourself in front of the fire, relishing the cozy glow on your skin and the heated slabs beneath you. Baxter was staring absently into the grate. Baxter slowly sipped his tea and then set his cup down next to him.
It's funny. More than once on this little excursion, I found myself forgetting that I'm supposed to be on a summer vacation. Especially right now. Curled up in front of a fire, cradling a cup of something hot. It puts me in a mind of long autumn nights, when the days are beginning to waste away to nothing.
Drinks, yep.
And this decor, too. The wood, the stone, the grandeur. I might have believed myself to be back in my childhood home in Oregon.
Ah, it is Oregon he's from. I couldn't remember if it's Oregon or Washington that he's from, but apparently it is Oregon. Because somebody mentioned earlier, somebody said earlier that he looks like he should have a Brooklyn accent, so he's from Oregon. Oregoni. Really? He lifted a leg up onto the ledge and tucked his knee under his chin, still focused on the burning light. His expression was distant, wistful.
Yes, it's one of the reasons I chose this hotel, as a matter of fact. Though I never lived in a building on this scale, the effect is similar. You could say that I was raised in a big, cool house. Cool in the sense of impressive, rather than underheated. That was what my friends used to call it.
I mean, probably not take another.
I loved it when they would come and visit. There was scarcely anything better. They never got over their sense of awe, and I ate it up. I like to think myself special in those days. To be young and innocent.
His features melted into a form that was more familiar. A curt little smile.
How strange. Usually I find indulging in nostalgia to be an unpleasant endeavor. But here and now, it's easy. And it's nice.
I died of dysentery on the Oregon Trail. Everybody did.
I suppose it's because for once I can share my thoughts with another person, rather than ruminating on the past by myself.
His eyes peeked askance to yours, before returning once more to the flames. Baxter sat motionless, save for the lilt of his measured breathing and the dance of the flames reflected in his eyes. He could have been part of the furnishings, if not for the stylistic disparity.
It hasn't been easy to find anyone to reminisce with, not for a while. But then again, I only developed a sentimentality once I'd gone off to college. I was too young and proud for that sort of matter before then. There wasn't anything in my life to harbor much sentimentality for. I suppose leaving was the catalyst, isn't it always? But once that part of my mind had developed, there wasn't anyone around to share the emotions with. My classmates and I, we don't have that kind of relationship.
Well,
Now, this may be a complete shock to you, but I've been told that I can come across as a bit too forward. I know, it can be hard to believe.
Your face cracked into a grin. Understatement of the year, anybody?
My intent is to be open with people so we can connect. It almost never works out that way, though. I've had to come to terms with the fact that I don't possess a knack for making friends. It was obnoxiously easy when I was a child, especially due to that aforementioned big, cool house. But now I keep finding myself at a loss for how to do it. With the hit or miss endeavor, the vast majority of the time I come up with a miss. Only lately it's been different. Incredibly different. I almost worry my luck won't last.
His voice had dropped to a low murmur, barely audible over the crackling wood in the grate.
It will all be over soon.
It was an echo of what he'd said after your hike this afternoon, but this time it went one small step further.
I wish I could stay.
Aw. His eyes were closed now, and a shallow crease had appeared in his forehead. You understood that he was talking about more than your short stint in this hotel. I don't want it to end either.
That means a lot, Jamie. Thank you.
He lapsed into silence once more, becoming engrossed in his own thoughts. You found that you were doing the same, disparate emotions drifting in and out of clarity. You both lingered a while longer, but your cups had been emptied and the fire was getting low. Baxter sighed.
But
Unfortunately, we'd best call it quits here. We can't stave off the morning by avoiding sleep altogether.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You stood and went up the stairs in quiet unison, side by side. Down the hallway, outside the doors to your rooms, there was a pause. Baxter cleared his throat.
thank you.
Thank you again for your company, Jamie. It's been an enjoyable evening. Until tomorrow, then.
His back was to you as he reached into his rear pocket, fetching his keycard. Good night, Baxter. You unlocked the door to your room and stepped inside, heading straight for bed. Can if you'd drink the coffee? You collapsed into it, your mind starting to lose its grip on consciousness the second you hit the mattress. A new day greeted you suddenly and without warning, sunshine streaming in through the windows. The curtains simply stood there and let it happen. You'd forgotten to draw them shut. The end to your miniature holiday had come. You promptly got out of bed and began to pack, following your usual routine as best you could. You didn't end up seeing Baxter again until after 11 o'clock. As promised, he'd taken a lie-in after burning the midnight oil, and had to make a last mad dash in order to check out at noon. Luckily, you managed the departure without too much of an issue. The two of you loaded up the car and set off for home. Home for one of you, at least. While you were returning to your normal life, Baxter was instead exchanging one kind of vacation for another. Or maybe, you thought, watching the California landscape drift past the window, Baxter was leaving his own version of normal behind right now. The Mountainside Lodge had been a home away from home for him, a simulacrum of his life in Oregon. Much more familiar than a sleek condo by the sea. Jamie into voyeurism, leaving the character. Let the trees watch me. You continued to reflect on this as the road rolled out before you. Occasionally you would swap comments with Baxter on random subjects, at other times retreating into the privacy of your own head. Rapidly, your time up on a mountain was fading into memory. You were lucky, you decided, to have seen a small piece of Baxter. Small? I don't think he'd like you describing it that way. He had entrusted to you a shard of himself. A tiny spark of light, shining from somewhere deep inside. I'm terrible. I'm sorry. You understood him better, even if only a fraction. That was probably the only glimpse into the real life of Baxter Ward that you'd get. Woo! 2.5 hours. One more piece for one more episode of the Baxter DLC. I'll do that in 2 weeks. So this will be in 2 weeks. Next week, at the request of somebody, I forget who, I'm going to go back to Don't Take It Personally. Gonna finish up Rose's story and Don't Take It Personally. And maybe show a little bit of Maria's romance. Geography trivia stream? Nah. So yeah, next week, another episode of Don't Take It Personally, I Just Don't Like You. And then the week after that, we'll get back to, we'll do the planning episode. Thanks for the game. Thanks for tuning in, Honey Bunny. Show some leg. What is the capital of Alaska? Juneau, isn't it? Alaska doesn't have a lot of cities. My hair looks gorgeous. Thanks, I didn't wash it today. I have 1 point. Yay, I have a point. So yeah. Thanks for coming. And, yeah, I'll probably see you tomorrow. I'll probably be live. I'll probably come on after work tomorrow. So yeah, I'll probably come on after work tomorrow. Capital of Tennessee. T? Knoxville? Is it Knoxville? I'll need to watch the Animaniac song if we're going to be doing this. So yeah, is it Knoxville for Tennessee? Nashville? Alright. So, thanks for coming. And yeah, I'll probably be on tomorrow after work, so hope to see you then. For now,